Good evening, Ajahn. Good evening, everyone, both here in the hall and online. Especially if it's your first time, welcome and thank you for joining us. Tonight's session, guided meditation, is being led by Ajahn Sādaro. Thank you, Ajahn.
Oh.
Just a quick announcement about upcoming events here. We actually had a very big event yesterday. It was the Vesak at the Newbury Buddhist Monastery. And Katina.
Yeah.
So, Vesak.
Yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't there. I have no idea what was going on. Katina.
It was big.
The robe offering.
It was big. It was one of the big ones.
We had a lot of people there. I think someone said about 260. So, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Just this week we have another guided meditation with our lay teacher, Sandeep, tomorrow night at 7:30. No session this Friday. Is there? Oh, I haven't heard. All right, so there may be some updates on Friday night by the sounds of it. I just checked the calendar. There was nothing on the calendar.
Okay.
So
don't worry about that.
So there may be an update. If you're interested, you can have a look at the website.
Yep.
Next Sunday, we have a visiting monk, Venerable Jinaratana, who's giving the Dhamma talk on Sunday at 9:30. Next Monday will be Ajahn Sādaro's last guided meditation session for this year before he heads off overseas for a couple of months.
A couple of months, yeah.
Just looking ahead, there will be a Christmas retreat here at the Buddhist Society for people in Melbourne, and I understand that could be offered online as well. So look out for information on that on the website or through our newsletter. That will be starting actually. The plan is to start it maybe on the 25th of December, actually on Christmas Day, for those of you who don't have anything else to do that day. The retreat will be led by Ajahn Mudito and will run each day from Christmas Day until Saturday the 30th of December. I think the plan is to run it from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. each day. So if you're here in Melbourne, you're welcome to join us for any of that retreat. If you can do all of it or just part of it, you're most welcome. There'll also be an event here on New Year's Eve. So that's something, an annual celebration here as well. So I think that's all for the announcements upcoming.
There's also a Saturday day retreat coming up
Ajahn.
next Saturday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. This Saturday there is an online retreat starting at...
And in person.
In person here.
Yep. In person and online.
Yeah. Full day retreat starting at...
It's 9 o'clock, I think.
9 o'clock. Yeah. So often those retreats start at 8:30. This one's starting half an hour later at 9 a.m. until 4 p.m.
Yeah, about that.
So if you're here in Melbourne, you're welcome to join us for any of that as well. Unfortunately, that won't be offered online.
Okay.
I think.
Don't know. Can't remember.
We're introducing a lot of new online stuff, so we're not always clear about what's happening. So if you're new to us, the format for tonight's session we'll be meditating until about 8:30 p.m. After that, there'll be time for questions. If you're here in the hall, you can raise your hand and we'll answer your question. If you're in the online audience, you can type your question into the live chat. Thank you. So, and if you're here in the hall, just a reminder to please check your mobile phone is on silent or turned off. Thank you. So I'll pass on to Ajahn. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Nice to see so many people here. I thought we were again, the online to in-person complexities that are happening at the moment. I thought there was an online version happening tonight as well. Maybe I was going to be lazy and just like sit over there and do it. I wasn't going to come into the hall. I was already doing another online meditation session, so I'll just sit over here and do it. But I don't think I can get away with doing that. Is it anybody's first time here? It's your first time? Yeah? A few? Have you ever done any meditation before or a little bit? Okay, no problem. So we'll do a little bit of guiding tonight. The session is a bit longer. We sit for maybe about an hour. So I'll give some very intermittent guided instructions, but most of the time it'll be free meditation. So whatever you usually do, you just practice along with that. And then after that, if you got any questions, we can ask that. But with that, we'll get started. Just find a comfortable seat. Start to gently adjust your posture. Allow your body to settle into the most comfortable position. You can take a few deep breaths. Just take a quick moment to check in with your state at the moment. Are you still feeling wound up from just getting here? Are you feeling relaxed and ready to go? Whatever it is, just see if you can lay that aside for the moment. Just resolve to simply sit. You don't have to do or struggle against anything, just simply sit and be aware of our meditation object. Simply just using this time to allow the mind to settle. Just like if you had muddy or murky water. If it just becomes still, it gradually drops and settles to the bottom. So if a mind is cloudy, turbulent, simply allow it to be still by resting your awareness on your meditation object and just be patient. Allow things to naturally settle. meditation object so as to not let the mind drift away too far. Just see if you can do this in a not overly tense or not overly loose manner. Just like you were cradling or cupping water in your hands to lift up to drink from a stream. You don't want to squeeze the water too tight because it'll overflow and spill. Nor do you want to have your hands or fingers too loose apart, because the water will just run through. But if we cup our hands gently enough, yet firmly enough, we can lift the water up into our mouths and allow it to come to our lips and quench our thirst. Likewise, if you cradle your meditation object in the same way, it allows you to drink from the cool, still waters of tranquility. See if periodically in your meditation you can incline your awareness to what arises in your experience. See if you can notice what things you're identifying with. Or grasping hold of. When a thought comes, do you identify with that thought? Is it somehow your thought? The sound you hear, is it somehow your sound? Discomfort in the body, you somehow identifying with it in some way. What's that process feel like? To stick to and identify with phenomena that arises and changes and passes away. Look in not to the phenomena itself, but the process of identifying with it. Very good. Hope everyone had a nice, peaceful sit. If anybody's got anything coming up in their practice they'd like to discuss, any questions they'd like to ask, now's the time.
Thank you, Ajahn, for the meditation guidance. I read about 5 hindrances that affects meditation, and if you have to reduce or get rid of the 5 hindrances if you wanted to succeed.
Yep.
The first hindrance is about the wanting things, or the desire.
Yep.
I guess my question is, if you reduce or if you get rid of the desire, then you use the you lose the encouragement to get into the meditation as well.
Yep.
And secondly, if you apply that to the general, day-to-day life, if you don't have a desire, then you won't be able to sort of achieve anything.
Yep.
So what's your suggestion around that concept, I guess, is the question. Thank you.
No problem. Just as a shameless plug, my last talk that I gave here was a very long exposition on the 5 hindrances. So there's a lot in that about the hindrances that you're talking about, and especially about the first one. So with the hindrances, that first hindrance that we have, it's mainly about sensory desire. So desire for things in the sensory realm. So desire for sights, sounds, tastes, touches, desire to sort of be enamored with one's own thinking and all these kinds of things. So desire in that, and the wanting in that respect, is more about sensory desire. It's not about desire for things that are usually wholesome, like the motivation to practice Dhamma. So that hindrance is called kama chanda. So it's more a desire for sensory things, which becomes a hindrance because you're wanting after things in the world. Now the desire to practice, this is a different kind of chanda. This is a chanda. This is a kind of, you could say, more like a kind of wholesome desire that you have to progress and to practice with the Dhamma, a desire to bring about things like the 7 enlightenment factors and things like that. So there is you can say you can have these, you could say, unskillful desires that agitate in the mind and don't lead to some kind of calm. But then you have these more skillful kind of desires that do lead you to more clarity, to more calm. Now, and so for the second part of the question is if you get rid of those kinds of wanting and those kinds of desires, would you lack any motivation to do anything in the world? Well, it depends what you want to do in the world. There's just limitless possibilities of what you want to do in the world. So it really is dependent on what you actually want to do. So do you have an example of what you would want to do in the world that would lessen that desire, or?
I was thinking more about day-to-day life.
Okay. Yep.
You lose the wanting to go to work, and then
Do you want to go to work now, or? Yeah. Yeah, I understand what you mean. So yeah, look, it's there definitely becomes, once the mind starts to calm down and settle down to some extent, the bottom line is there's not as much of a draw towards things in the world. Now, but that doesn't mean that you don't still do them. You still do the things that you need to do. We all have responsibilities. We all have things we need to do. We all have, roles we need to fulfill. We have, responsibilities to people around us. So we still do those things, but the kind of draw towards those, to do it just for the sake of doing it, or do it for some kind of, you could say, some kind of praise or some kind of reward or some kind of, sense of negative obligation to do it. You're not driven by those things. So one still does everything that they need to do in the world, and you need to get up, you need to eat, you need to look after your children, you need to do all those things, but there isn't that kind of incessant kind of desire there to be pulled around by it to some extent. So you still do all the things, but yeah. Does that make sense? Or yeah. Question online or?
Thank you, Ajahn. There are a couple of questions online.
Okay.
I'll just go with one and then see if there's another question in the hall.
Yep.
The first question is, Ajahn, what are skillful means when we have a mental habit in meditation and daily life practice of wondering if what we are doing is good enough? Thank you.
Yeah, I think so. It's a natural inclination to actually have where, we have a sense of, where we can have this sense of that, whatever I do, it's not good enough in some way, or it's not sufficient enough in some way, or it's not meaningful enough in some way, or it's not purposeful enough in some way. And I think, this is in some way that this is actually this can be a good thing, in that you have this kind of humility where you realize that, there's something about your experience that you want to improve on. And so I think in some cases, this can actually be a very, very useful tool. I also think it's also sort of a part of the existential condition of living that in some way, whatever I do, like, is it going to be good enough? Is it going to be meaningful? Is there going to be any purpose to actually doing these things? This is something that I think most people face at some time. And, these are sort of questions that we need to wrestle with to some extent. But there is also the other kind of having this idea that, whatever we do is not good enough, that it is actually quite unhealthy, that is quite detrimental, that is quite, that does leave you could say more of an unskillful imprint on the mind. And those kinds of self-doubt where you don't have a good grasp on how things are, this can be harmful. So say for example, you might go, well, nobody likes me in any way. Nobody likes me at all. Why does nobody like? We could have that kind of belief and be overlooking the fact that there's plenty of people that actually do like us, and there's plenty of people that are friends with us. So these kinds of thoughts where we're not good enough, where we have a miscalculation of what the world is around us is not. Some of these things are not very helpful. So I think trying to reality test your perceptions of what you think is not good enough is always it's very useful to do, and to externalize and to objectify them in some way. Whereas, say for example, if we're thinking, I don't have any friends, you go, well, do I have friends? Is there's this person, there's this person, and there's this person in my life. Actually, I do have some friends. Nobody likes me. It's like, well, this person actually showed up to help me the other day, so actually this person seems to like me to some extent. So I think we need to try to continually reality check these kinds of thoughts that we have, but then also just on a very practical example. So if it is falling into that kind of negative imprint that's on the mind, try to balance that out with practices like gratitude practices, where you really do search for things that are actually good enough in your life. And I think if you're honest with yourself, you can find plenty of them. Even the simple factor that you have some time to do some meditation, you have some time to practice Dhamma. This is actually a very, unique opportunity and a good thing that you actually have. So yeah, there's many different levels of feeling like we're not enough. Some of them are actually useful. Some of them are just an existential part of existing in some way. Some of them are negative and they leave that kind of negative imprint. And if you are finding those, reality testing yourself to the best of your ability, but then also balancing that out with kind of gratitude and compassion and kindness practices is very, very important. Anybody remaining have a question? Yeah.
Hello. I would love to hear a little bit more about what you were talking about at the end, about not identifying.
Oh, yeah. You have to remind me because most of the time I forget what I say.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. I was trying not to forget it either. But yeah, just sort of
That's
not
good.
identifying with.
Yep. Yeah. So, generally when we can get to a point where we can still the mind down a little bit and the meditation's going okay, we can start to look into our own experience in a more kind of detached manner where we can start to see it's like, most of the time, everything that I experience, sights, sounds, even the thoughts in my own mind, essentially they feel like mine. They feel like a me that's up here that's experiencing these things. Or a pain in my body, it's like, it's my pain that's in my hip. And so this process of identifying with phenomena that we experience, if we look into the actual process, this is something that, we can actually see. It's a kind of, it sort of feels sticky and it feels, feels rigid to some extent. So looking into what we're identifying with and just seeing, well, this is how this whole, process of grasping onto existence, this is how this happens. Because just because something pops into my experience, I think it's mine, and I identify with this thing. Whereas if we look at, say for example, a thought that arises, it's like, well, is this my thought? Not really. It's just, if it's my thought, where is the me that thinks the thing? If there's a me that thinks this thing, where is this me that thinks the thing? What is the me that thinks the thing? Is it only just this act of thinking? And so the more we can look into something like that and see, well, I'm identifying with the thought because I think the thought's mine, but then no, I'm identifying with the thing that is the thinker, and I'm identifying with the thing that is the thinker, thinking this thing is me. But then, okay, well, what is this me that I'm actually identifying with? And we can sort of just keep going down and keep looking through this. And the more we keep looking through this, it's like, oh, hang on, like, why am I identifying with this thing? All this is doing is just, causing some kind of discontent. Even identifying with good things, it's like, oh, I'm in a happy mood, I'm in a good mood. Things are awesome, things are great. There's a sense of identification there that sort of becomes like sticky in some kind of way. And so even identifying with these kinds of things puts a condition around your experience. If you look into it and not identify it, there's no conditions around it. So the experience is the experience. So it becomes innately free, and it becomes innately clear, and it becomes innately at ease. So even a negative thing that arises in the mind, you're still at ease with it because you're not identifying with it. It's just a thing that arises. The good things that arise in the mind, you're not really identifying with it. So it's just a thing that is there. So it's really just looking into this constant process we have of identifying with everything we experience just because it happens to like arise here. it just after a while it just doesn't make sense anymore. Like it's just because it's arising here, it doesn't mean that it's mine. It's just something that appears here. If I go into a coma, it all goes. If I go to sleep, it all goes. So it's just really just looking into that process of everything we do, we actually identify with, and everything we identify with in some way causes us some kind of discontent. Does that make sense? Or
Absolutely.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Ajahn, we have another online question.
Yep.
It's one of the top
Have we got
5
time
hits.
for one more?
Yep.
Time for one more? Yep.
Last question then. What to do if physical pain comes up?
In meditation, I'm assuming. Well, there's different layers of what you can do with this thing now. Like obviously, if it's really bad and you actually have like a serious physical limitation, i.e., you have like a slipped disc in your back or something like that. If that kind of pain comes up, well, obviously you have to move, you have to stand up, you have to do all those kinds of things. If it's just a general garden variety pain that comes up in from sitting in meditation, again a bit of a sore leg or something like that, then what it's quite useful to do is practice with this way of like, if you know that the pain is coming on and okay, this is this is the pain threshold that I have. It's always important to try to, at least try to go just a tiny little bit past it, but not push it to the point where you're really stressing yourself out in some way or you're pushing yourself too far. You just want to try to get a little bit past that point where you think that, I can't really do this thing anymore. If you do that, your pain threshold increases and you can sit in meditation longer and it doesn't bother you anymore. And the pain just becomes a thing that is there and you don't really worry about it as much anymore. The pain is still there, it still comes up, but it just doesn't worry you as much anymore. So, but then, if you've got past your pain threshold, it's like, oh no, this is way too much, then you go back, you drop back a little bit, you ease off, you maybe move a little bit, but just working constantly with it, of trying to increase it just a little bit, and again doing it in a safe manner where you're not overexerting yourself in some way. The reason I say this is what you don't want to do is just every time you have a pain comes up in your meditation, you don't want to go, okay, well this is usually my pain level and I'm getting up to my pain level. I know it's going to get too bad now and I pull back now. You don't want to be doing that, because then what happens is your threshold for being able to sit for periods of time gets less and less and less. So we always want to be sort of like at least bumping up against that kind of threshold and trying to, we're working sort of on that knife's edge kind of thing. You don't want to not get to it, but you don't want to go like way too far past it. So it's just playing with that edge where we think we can't really do this anymore and seeing if we can just go a little bit past it. And this will help with our practice. So but again, if it's a physical, you have some sort of physical ailment in some way, you have a torn meniscus or something, like, don't try and sit there on the floor. Don't be stupid and end up having to go through a couple of like knee surgeries just because you think sitting on the floor is good. Obviously, if it's like that, just sit on a chair. So yeah. Any last questions in the room or? Nope. Okay, very good. Okay, with that, we might call it a night. Thanks for everybody for sticking around. So, there's a whole bunch of things coming up that Langdon talked about before. The one other thing is we have the nightly meditation as well. Anybody that wants to join in on that, you're more than welcome. Just jump in on the BSV website. There's like a whole online portal now, and you can jump in and we do a nightly meditation from 7 p.m. every Monday to Thursday, and I think soon we might be doing a longer one on the Fridays because the Friday night sessions are now over. So we might be doing one longer one on the Friday where it's like it's a little bit longer for people as well. So that's we haven't decided yet, but I'll leave that up to the community to decide if that's a good thing or not. So yeah, that's an option. So yeah, with that, we'll call it a night, and yeah, see everybody next time. Okay, night everyone. No problem.